In this address, I'd like to speak to you about two things: the jewel and the setting of the jewel. This ceremony is glorifying the parampara. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, evam parampara praptam imam rajasayo vidu. Krishna is emphasizing that we have a jewel in that we are connected to the parampara, the disciplic succession, going back to Lord Krishna himself. Just that connection is the most extraordinary wealth, and we should never take it for granted. To understand Krishna as he is no small accomplishment. Therefore, Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, if you can understand him in truth, then upon giving up this present body, you don't take another material body. So this is how crucially important the knowledge coming through parampara is. Then every jewel needs a setting. So Srila Prabhupada gave us not only the jewel of parampara knowledge of Krishna, but he gave us the setting, his mission, his institution. That institution contains so many nationalities, so many ethnicities, yet somehow or other, Srila Prabhupada wanted us all to work together. Sometimes that is very difficult because we're all individuals. Sometimes there are disagreements, even amongst the most senior devotees. But because of dedication to Srila Prabhupada's setting for the jewel that he gave us, we somehow or other stick together. This reminds me of how Prabhupada described arguments in an Indian marriage. Now you can tell me if it's still true. He said, in the morning, the husband says, that's it, I'm finished, I'm leaving. And the wife replies, I'm leaving first. But by the evening, it's all resolved. Is it still true like that? So sometimes, due to variety, we're all individuals. Sometimes there are different perspectives how to serve Krishna best. But we should always understand the central point is how to please the parampara, how to please Krishna. We should not let our variegatedness cause strife and conflict. And this takes an effort. To work together can be more difficult than controlling the mind and the senses. Especially as devotees, each one of us often has a strong vision of what should be done and how to do it. But to sacrifice that on the altar of working together takes great surrender. Here in Melbourne, as I spoke yesterday, you have a management council that is so deep, so seasoned in years of experience, years of wisdom. So that makes my service so much the easier. Sometimes I wonder how much you all realize the depths of fortune because of the depths of the experience and wisdom of your leaders here in Melbourne. Certainly there'll be differences of opinion, even, as I said, even amongst the most senior devotees in ISKCON. There are different perspectives. Sometimes we have to work it out over a week, sometimes a month, sometimes years. But because of love for Srila Prabhupada, some or other, we try to keep things together and functioning for Srila Prabhupada's pleasure. You see, Prabhupada didn't simply give us Krishna, he gave us the method for pleasing Krishna together. Srila Prabhupada did not like factions. There's no doubt about it. He didn't like divisions. While at the same time, he recognized that to expect that there's no difference of opinion is impersonalism. But although there are always going to be differences of opinion, we should remain united in working together to please Srila Prabhupada. So remember, we have two things, the jewel and the setting. The jewel is the parampara knowledge of Krishna, Krishna as he is. And the setting is the organization, ISKCON, for working together to accomplish Srila Prabhupada's mission. We can relate to the spiritual master in two ways. As you know, if you studied Bhagavatam, there's vapu, there's the physical presence of the Guru, and there is vani, his instructions. I was always lamenting I didn't get much of the vapu at all. Meanwhile, I was so foolish, I didn't notice that Prabhupada was drowning me in his vani. Took me years to realize that. Srila Prabhupada walked into my office at the BBT and looked me over and just made a sound. That was it for a sound vibration from the Guru. What would you do if that happened to you? You say, forget this, Prabhu, I'm out of here. Or I'm going to find a Shiksha Guru or find someone. But I was always thinking of the glories of devotees like my dear friend, His Grace Burijan Prabhu, who wrote a beautiful book, My Glorious Master. So much personal association. So I was always lamenting, when am I going to get that? When am I going to get that? I was so foolish, as a younger devotee, I didn't notice that Prabhupada drowned me in his vani. He gave me his books to serve, 10 hours, sometimes 12 hours a day, just reading Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Day after day, month after month, year after year. The manuscripts would come from Srila Prabhupada right to my desk. And here I was complaining, where's the vapu? Where's my personal association? And then, as I was explaining yesterday, on top of so much association with his books, round the clock, one day, the BBT manager came into my office with a huge box, huge cardboard box, full of all the letters to Srila Prabhupada and all of Prabhupada's responses. So there were two huge boxes, actually. He said, we're going to store these in your office, but do not read them. So I tried to follow that instruction, but then, as I explained yesterday, my senior godbrother, Jayadvaita, then Brahmachari, now Jayadvaita Swami, immediately came running into my office. Okay, Devamrita, let's get into it. I couldn't resist. He was the senior Vaishnava. I had to do it. So I had Srila Prabhupada's books, I had his letters. I had the letters to him. I could see both sides of situations. Devotees writing him and what his response was. I could see it all in context. And yet I was thinking, where is my personal association? From the very beginning, looking back now, I can see that my relationship was with the vani. And I remember reading in Srila Prabhupada's letters that he said, physical association with the guru is for neophytes. And of course, you know what my response was? Let's all remain neophytes so we can have Prabhupada's physical association. But the neophytes have to grow up. And during Prabhupada's presence with us, his physical presence, we were always wondering why he stresses the vani, the instruction of the spiritual master. Even Srila Prabhupada himself wasn't known as having much association physically with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but his association through the vani, through the instruction, was the core of his life. I remember the first time when I read some literature by Srila Prabhupada. It was a pamphlet, not a pamphlet, a booklet called The Transcendental Teachings of Prahlad Maharaj. That was the beginning of my association with Srila Prabhupada. By the time I got to page 2, I was devastated. I had never responded to any kind of literature, although I was reading books since I was 3 years old. I had never responded to any literature so quickly, so powerfully, as just the first 2 pages of reading Srila Prabhupada. I was astonished. I thought, I have studied with the biggest brains on the planet. I've had the finest material education. I have never read anyone who speaks like this with such depth, profundity, and complete authoritativeness. So immediately, unknowingly, I didn't realize, immediately I had fallen in love with Srila Prabhupada's books. That's the vani, the power of the vani. But it took me years to understand Srila Prabhupada's statements in his books that the vani is more intense than the physical association. That's something that sounds counterintuitive, hard to understand. Because we're in the bodily conception of life, we think physical association is the most intense. But actually, as you progress in spiritual life, you find that the vani, the association by following the instructions, by meditating on the instructions of the Guru, is the most intense. I remember in Los Angeles, where Prabhupada would visit often, devotees would be jockeying for position. Who could be physically closest to Prabhupada? Who gets to go on the walks? Who gets to be in his quarters? And then I was very surprised to hear from Srila Prabhupada that if you judge who is most dear to him, if you judge who is most dear to me by who is physically closest to me, then I say the mosquito is the best devotee. And he said, but what's the purpose of the mosquito? To bite me. In that way, he taught that vani is more important. But although the vani is more important, that doesn't mean we should neglect the vapu, the physical presence. You take as much of the physical presence as you can get and be grateful for that. But the real disciple takes into the core of the heart the instruction as his or her life and soul. So here in Melbourne, you have such a depth of seasoned leaders, from His Grace Aniruddha Prabhu and Her Grace Achintarupa Devi to all the members of the Melbourne Executive Board. Such a wealth of experience. Very unique in this world that you have such veterans at the helm. And so, naturally, there are going to be different perspectives, how to do things or how to not do things, but we should not lose sight of the great wealth that you have here. And I've tried to serve Srila Prabhupada in my efforts on every continent of the world. Not just passing through, but actually on the ground on every continent of the world. So therefore, when I say that you have a rare gift of having a leadership council that is so experienced and with such a veteran qualification, when I say that, I'm not just speaking just to make you feel good. I'm telling you the objective fact. To have such a group of individuals at the helm with such seniority, such wisdom, such expertise, and variety of opinions, yet they're all trying to pull together for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. So yes, the Melbourne congregation is growing, it's expanding. There are different ideas, let's do this, let's do that. But we should always remember that some or other, at the end of the day, we've got to keep it all together. And that takes patience and tolerance, even amidst disagreement. Most of you, practically all of you, are in family life. You have a husband, you have a wife. Tell me, are you always 100% in agreement with your spouse? Raise your hands if that's the case. Anyway, all the time, 100%. No. Yet you stay together. Some other you work it out. I see Bimala Prasad Prabhu nodding his head. You know the family should stay together. And this is what Srila Prabhupada wanted from his devotees. Yes, he acknowledged there'll be differences of opinion, perception, plans how to serve Krishna, but some or other we should stay together. And it's not easy, just like in family life, I've heard. I missed the experience myself, but I've heard it's not easy all the time. But still, for the sake of the children, you stay together. Similarly, for the sake of Srila Prabhupada's desires, his followers seek to stay together. How there can be unity and diversity takes time to work out. We shouldn't lose our patience. So in remembrance and glorification of the jewel and the setting, let us all work together how to keep Srila Prabhupada's desires in the center. We have different perspectives sometimes, but the most important thing is that Srila Prabhupada didn't like factions and splinters and splits. Some other we have to patch it up. There can be some divergence, but some other, let's sincerely seek how to move ahead and expand Lord Chaitanya's mission in Melbourne especially. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.